Good evening. Tonight we're doing dailies. Daily roulette stream with Mage as the primary focus. And that is of course with me, FFXIV, but you can just call me Kai. I hope you're all doing very well. A Chris, a Ymir, a HK, a Mastermind, a Kitsuneko, a Gazel, and a Te. I hope you're all doing very well, and apparently I've been granted a boiled egg. Excellent. Now we're ready to battle. So I will of course be primarily playing Mage for this entire stream. That of course means Summoner, Red Mage and Black Mage. I mean, I could mess around with using different speeds and stuff for Black Mage, but I have a feeling that it's easier if I just go with the fast one that I'm more used to, if I'm also interacting with stream. I was thinking of it, but of messing around with slow Mage, but I think it's better that I just stick to fast, which I'm used to. Or more used to, you could say. Hey Cerebral Kitty and hey BSR, I hope you're also doing very well. Right, so as usual, we basically go down the list of roulettes and try to bring as many people as we can. Black Mage, not White Mage. And the only ones we skip are, we typically skip main scenario and guild hest and mentor, and these days I've also been skipping frontline, mainly because I finished the series XP that I need, and I will use this time just in case there is a new series for some reason early next year. So build up interest in frontline again. I have to admit, PvP isn't my most favorite piece of content. But yeah, we're specifically only playing Mage DPS jobs. Typically, I also refer to healers as healers and never as mages. I might refer to them sometimes as casters or magic users or something like that, but I'm pretty consistent about calling the healers healers to differentiate them from the Mage DPS jobs. Yeah, we will do those. And then we will do the newest Alliance raid, which is, I guess at this point it's not that new anymore, but it's technically the newest, Thalea. And depending on how much time there's left by that point, we might also do P12. We might also just make sure we can do P12. Last week I learned that some people were very, very disappointed that we didn't do P12. So maybe I'll just try to make sure we have the time to do it. What in the world? What's happening? I thought... Have I not added you, Amocius? Have I not added you? Nothing to apologize for, Ymir. I was specifically just... Oh, I have added you. The game is just slow because I have so many friends. Oh, you have changed names! That makes sense. It didn't even occur to me that the character had a different name because it was just exactly the name I expected to be in the character. But yeah, don't worry about it, Ymir. I wasn't saying it as something you weren't allowed to do. It was more to say that apparently people did mind that I skipped P12 on stream. Which, of course, means that it is something that I shouldn't just lightly skip over if I can help it. Right, so we have a lot of people today. That is incredible. We could have multiple groups, I think. Well, we are starting with Expert Roulette. So if you would like to join for Expert Roulette, come over to me, and then we can figure out if we have more than a light party, then we can figure out what we do about that. And then, of course, I see a huge amount of people. You have enough people to make another light party to do an Expert Roulette if you so desired. Yeah, it could be the case that the fact that you changed names made the game mess up for a moment, Amocius. I remember similarly that when Kitsuneko upgraded to not be on trial anymore, it took like a day before it actually highlighted them as a friend for me for some reason. Like as if something significant changed. Mastermind says, finally convinced my childhood friend to start playing Final Fantasy XIV. I completely forgot what an astronomical task it is. for a new player to walk into this game. I've convinced like 2 or 3 friends to try the game. And one of them gave it a second chance, and on each of them, on their first go, they stopped, they lost all interest by the time, like, after the first session. And the third one, who gave it a second try, they managed just barely to get past the legendarily long wall known as a Realm Reborn post game, and then they were burned out. They could not continue. They just barely got over that, and then they were done. Which is very sad. The only person I know in like real life that I play Final Fantasy XIV with happens to be someone who already played the game before I met them. I haven't managed to convince anyone like really to get into the game. My brother started trying the game because of seeing me make videos on it, but he's a very, very busy man. Ether. And another one. Well, Mastermind, the best you can try to do in that situation is try to help them in choosing what to do, so that you can like help them with like, oh, you don't have to do this you don't have to do either. You can wait with this and things like that, so that they don't feel as overwhelmed. It will of course not be entirely irrelevant all these things, but that's the best you can do for your friend, I think. Can I fix this? Can I make this work? Yes, I can. Now, the position of my ley lines, on the other hand, might be very awkward. Okay, that was perfect. Oh, my dot is out. Hey, you Guardian. Exactly, it was totally planned. That's how it works. I've also been intentionally using my Fire 3, like my Fire startup procs, more for weaving or repositioning here. Which might not be the most effective way to use it, but it's fine. I won't reach around to AF1, F3P standard there. Mandalorian says, as someone who just finished Shadowbringers, I'm convinced that 90% of Endwalker is just this dungeon after watching your streams. It's just the reason for that is that the expert roulette, for some reason, is just only the 2 newest dungeons in the game. Which, of course, means that every time we do expert roulette, there's a literal 50% chance that we get this one. Specifically this one. Which could absolutely give you the impression that this is the end game. The polar bear is actually the whole story to Endwalker. Yeah, the patty cakes polar bears. That's actually the entire MSQ. If playing Final Fantasy XIV has taught me anything about 50% chances, I know, right? It's actually 100% chance. It's just that you don't know which of them they're rolling today specifically. I usually call it Square Enix RNG. Because I have never seen RNG in this way in any other game, pretty much. I mean, it could also be called like Final Fantasy XIV RNG by that token, but I think Square Enix RNG just sounds better. You guys getting Lunar Subterrane? I wonder if I typed this right. I really hope so. I was like literally like planning my like careful jump onto the line so that I didn't lose my stance mid-flight. Would be sad if it didn't work. Well, to be fair, Cat Damon, in Baldur's Gate there is a setting to make more to have more forgiving RNG by making it more consistent, and that is turned on by default. So consider that. Can I make this work? I think I can. No, not through my ley lines. I'm using those. Okay, you can strike through my ley lines now. I wasn't using them anymore anyway on account of them being dead. And transpose lines. The first one of the dungeon. Ha! He's chasing me. I don't even have my ley lines down. What is he doing? I don't think he got the memo. I haven't put down the targeting reticle. You're supposed to ignore me. The thing is, Amocius, that part of the reason why the expert roulette dungeons can feel like some of the easiest is because those are the ones where you're not synced down, so you might be significantly stronger than what you'd normally be in content in Final Fantasy XIV. Combine this with the fact that basically everyone are well acquainted with these particular dungeons because they get them all the time. And then you have a good case for why everyone's really good at them. There's also the possibility that the expert roulettes are really easy, but because there are other factors that play in, it's difficult to know if that is the reason with absolute certainty. Little does Katsu know that the polar bear is a YouTube moderator. Huh? I didn't say anything bad about the polar bear, I'm pretty sure. Polar bear mount when? There is one. It was, I believe it is in the Morgue store because it was a Christmas holiday event that gave it. I'm pretty sure it's a polar bear in like a Santa hat and a vest. I think. It's the same but tinted brown. I'm pretty sure that that's not a polar bear. Mom, can I have a cat? We have a cat at home, sweetie. It's a dog. He's a tanned polar bear. Aha. I feel like I have to hold on to my swift cast and triple cast for this. Cat at home is a Mikote. I think this is fine. Now, I'm doing the very risky move here. Go on then, breathe at us. I think this is fine. No, it is not. Yes, it is. Apparently. Apparently that counted. What? I have to say, I felt like I was standing like smack dab in the telegraph there. That was really, really weird that that was like allowed. I feel like I was really cheated on this. I was being diligent and expecting the movement mechanic only for the boss to just go, oh, that one, I'll give you the nice one. It's like when you go out into, if you prepare for rain, then it's not going to rain. The day that you're not prepared for rain, that is when it's raining, 100%. Like, the reason why we got the nice configuration was because I was sitting on triple cast. Like, the boss was like, meh, what's the point when you're ready for it? Also, is he just a bro? Brono says it was last year's Christmas event. Was it last year? I feel like last year they gave a reindeer mount, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure that last year was when they gave a reindeer mount. And I do happen to know that my Elch Small Kai has that one. So maybe I remember wrong, but I think it is. It is fine. Thank you anyway. It might have been the year before that. You think it's safe to assume there will be a Final Fantasy 16 crossover at some point after Dawn Trail is out? I think it's basically assumed. At some point. They have also already basically said that there is one. Like, we already know there is one. And hey, James, and hey, you got in. And did I also missed Sidra and Cat? Never seen a black mage cover so much ground. Exactly, there is an there was an announcement. Remember when we talked about making a guide for bosses' ability selection? Oxomammoth did the thing where he looked down and realized he misaligned tidal breath. Oh yeah. The boss guide to fighting a soloing warrior is don't use raid wides. Just keep whacking the tank. The thing is, if your auto attacks are strong enough, you will eventually beat the warrior. You might be able to like beat them on damage. Well, oh yeah, the warrior flight was a paladin. That would suggest that it might be Endwalker stuff, but we can never be sure on these things unless they specifically said 6.55. I think I'm feeling red mage a bit more. So if you want to come along for a level 90 dungeons, you come over to me. If you want to join but already see that, oh well, there's already 4 people, you still come over, and then we'll like rearrange the group so that we don't have, you know, like, so that everyone gets a go reasonably. See, Cat Damon wants to come. Is there anyone that was in the expert roulette that would like to sit out, or should we figure that out? Should I figure that out? Okay, that works. Anyone that can tank? Perfect. Who is Kulex? Yukarin says, I know this is the Final Fantasy IV boss theme, but whenever I hear this background music, which was the Final Fantasy IV boss music that was playing on Octomammoth, it just defaults to Kulex boss theme for me. For me, I don't really correlate it with Final Fantasy IV that much on account of not playing the game. Smileton! I love Smileton. Secret boss in Mario RPG. Does that have that same? Is the boss theme in that fight very similar? A lot of people said that this was a long fall, second coming. I messed that up. I was too quick on the draw. Well, I don't think I'll finish my combo anyway. I was too quick on Manification, so I don't get the last step with Manification on it. Oh well. In my defense, it's been a while since I played Red Mage in like a dungeon. Eschaton. It could be that the theme is basically designed to sound like the Final Fantasy IV theme. Who knows? Maybe it's like the same person that worked on it. I don't know. Mario RPG was developed by Square. Well, that pretty much answers that one. It is quite silly that the AoE combo requires more mana, but it's fine. Let me just put it like this. It used to be worse. You young people don't know how good you have it. Back in my day, we didn't even have a slow cast AoE. Needed to align that so I didn't manage to get myself sniped by the beams on the ground. There are lines on the floor. Yeah, back in the day, Manification just doubled however much mana you had, and you needed, like, back in the day, you needed 80 of each type to do a melee combo, so you needed to work your way up to 40, so you could even, like, so that Manification worked. I think I'll just, Swift cast, and that'll be that. Scorch sounds amazing. I don't know, like that sound, like really stands out somehow. Why did I use a single target spell for that? That was just dumb. That was just straight up bad. Why did I do that? It is quite ironic that Impact has a delayed impact. Scatter and Impact like originally had nothing in common. Like they were two, like they had nothing to do with each other back in Stormblood. I'm not sure why they suddenly decided that one upgraded into the other, or that Impact was an AoE spell for that matter. You gotta stand in the smiles. The smiles. I don't know if that is a physical attack. It is. Well. Hi, Ryan. Hope you're doing well. Oh, right. The boss mechanic. Ow. The way that Jolt and Impact was related back in Stormblood was that once you unlocked Impact, when you cast Jolt, it had a 100% chance of turning into Impact for your next cast. Or rather, it gave you a proc that allowed you to use Impact, which was just, it was just a third option as opposed to the stone and the fire. And it was just a guarantee, like it was basically RNG compensation. Like they just used it to make sure that you didn't like get completely screwed if you were unlucky. Which is, like, not the most interesting action, I suppose. Which I imagine is part of the reason why they reworked it. I'm pretty sure the boss runs to the center in the middle of this. Not that we'll see it. We have incredibly good damage in this group. Yeah, my first job to max level back in Stormblood was Red Mage, so I'm kind of acquainted with it. The weirdest thing is that, I mean, Moulinet didn't actually lead to your spell burst like the Flare of the Holy, and add to this that the Flare and the Holy didn't even do AoE damage, if I remember correctly. So you didn't really want to use them. They just did a ridiculous amount of damage. So that, like, you might not actually want to use Moulinet on 3 targets, for example. I'm too fast! I'm too fast! I think this is fine. I think I missed something there. Oh well. Oh boy. Not too keen on getting too far ahead on a specific element, not or mana type, because I don't, even if I misclick it. If it was important, you would have remembered it. Yeah, you're probably right. Just something really important just forgot out in the rain. More melee combos. Oh, mines. It is quite interesting that they show off this particular mechanic by just making sure that the mine is never in the way necessarily the first time. But that also means that you can well, if you just don't stand too close to it, you can mostly ignore it. That was unlucky timing. Can we kiss with the bombs as they come rolling? Yeah, I always use tank cooldowns to make sure that I eat the the front bomb in the second set, so that it isn't in the way in case we get the unlucky configuration. But that does require that everyone steps away. Nice, Cat Damon. That's exactly what I was talking about. In this case, we didn't get the configuration where we needed. Not yet, at least. Well, yeah, Kitsunago, yeah, that's the thing. The tank always kisses with the mines in that particular encounter. Almost always. If you know what you're doing. Then you probably will. Like, the thing is, it's not even about melee uptime. The thing is, it's about the tank's uptime. And even if everyone else in your group is ranged, no one, like basically no one goes to the back side of that room. So if you don't deal with it, a lot of players will be like, then I don't know how to do this mechanic, and then they get hit by something else, or the mine. So it's simply safer to do this trick, because people expect you to do it. It's a little bit like how I've said that doing wall-to-wall pulls, even if you might not feel too confident about it in higher level content, especially like in content where there's only 2 packs at a time, is safer than not doing wall-to-wall pulls, because if you don't do wall-to-wall pulls, then you, the tank, might feel like, oh, I don't know if it's overkill to use a defensive cooldown here, and the healer will be like, I don't know if I should use all of my tools here, it feels a little like underwhelming, and the DPS are like, should I use my damage cooldowns? Is he going to pull more? Like, they're not going to be sure, and then everyone just does nothing, making everything take longer and somehow be more dangerous. In the same way that the Smileton boss has this gimmick. Azul says, I have no idea what that boss does because I've been following the party. Okay, well in that case, I can quickly explain how that fight works, just from memory. I can't exactly remember the exact order, but they put down a bomb on either side of the arena, and one of them has like a few arrows. The other one has like way more arrows. That means it gets pushed harder. So that means the one with few arrows pushes to the front of the arena, and the one with a lot gets pushed to the back. So you can go to the safe side is the one that has many arrows if you stay in the front of the room. After it has done that, it will put down a mine in a side of the arena. So either the entire left or the entire right. And there will be a safe spot between the mines if, like, everything aligns badly. But the first time it uses the mechanic, it will never force you to get over to the mine side, ever. It just shows you the mechanic. And when it then, shortly after, like, it'll do another set of pushed bombs, but the one that is on the safe side will always go to the back of the room, so melee uptime. After it's done that, it will detonate the mines, and they explode slightly bigger than their trigger range. So you have to like really like dramatically get away from them to make sure you don't get hit, just to be sure. Then it'll put down more mines, and these mines, sometimes it'll give you the configuration where you don't have to deal with the mine at all, but it is very possible that it will combine the mine with putting the bomb in the front of the room on the safe side. So you have to deal with the bomb or lose melee uptime. There's also the part that it uses, I think it's called left assembler or right assembler, which is basically just shoots a laser beam across the entire right or left half the room. It's left or right, so that can often trip up people because it's the boss is left or right, so opposite to you. And the first time it uses that ability, it will always be on the mine side. The second time, anything goes. Like, and that's the key thing, is that the mines are like the most annoying part of the fight, and you can completely neutralize that by having the tank just eat it. They don't give you vuln stacks or paralysis if you take 0 damage from it. So a paladin can use hallowed ground, a warrior can use like bloodwetting and shake it off in the opposite order, otherwise shake it off eats your bloodwetting, and maybe a defensive cooldown. Gunbreakers can use Super Bolide, and Dark Knights can use TBN, and I think Dark Mind helps as well. So all tanks can just like neutralize it if they want, and if they don't know how to do it, the healer can also just, you know, if it's a barrier healer, they can just drop a big barrier on you and you can eat it. Or you can just, you know, assume the paralysis. It's better than having to deal with the mine on the floor. And it's specifically the first time the boss just puts down the mines and says, look, I have this mechanic, and then just doesn't force you to deal with it. The second time it puts down the mines, it is possible that it'll force you to deal with it, because basically the bombs randomly choose how they are aligned, and the laser beam randomly chooses which side, so it's a 50-50. But ultimately, any other tricks you might want to employ to mess with this is just completely overshadowed by the fact that the tank can just go, cooldowns go brr, and just run into the mine. Problem solved. It's pretty funny how that ends up. You can have your melee combo so long as you remember that the book is mightier than the sword. See, the thing is, Red Mage doesn't use their sword or their rapier outright. They use magic on it. Meanwhile, summoners actually use their book. Sometimes they'll put magic on it, but they do use their book. There's also that part, as Cat Damon says, it's the last boss, so you have no reason to save anything. You can just, like, that's the thing. If I'm doing Smileton and I'm warrior, actually, let me just find it real quick. Where did I put it? Ah, there it is. I actually did, that there's no sound on it, but I actually did record a roulette I did with the Free Company yesterday, I believe. And if we just jump to here, we had the whole fight. So we can just we could have just watched this. That would have been way easier, wouldn't it? It's not what I wanted. Ah, there you go. I'll just show you what I mean. Oh yeah, it also has a tank bust. I completely forget about that. So there's the first mines. You just avoid those and step away, and you're fine. And it chooses the safe. Like, it protects the safe side from melee uptime, just so you can see the mechanic. And then it does more bombs. And it doesn't matter. It pairs it with the laser, but it does it on the it makes sure the safe side is fine again, so that it shows you the mechanic. Then it puts down mines, and you see. I did write in the party chat, I'm going to eat the second mine. I have Vengeance, Rampart, Shake It Off, and I just used Bloodwetting. I basically just went on all of my defensive cooldowns because I don't need any of them. So just in case, I don't want to get paralysis, but in retrospect, Aradel also gave me Warden's Paean, so it didn't actually matter. You just eat it, nothing. Mechanic resolved. And now you can just ignore the bombs entirely because there's the safe side again, and then nothing to deal with. There's a stack marker. Fine. And the thing is, that stack marker would be a lot harder to deal with if you had gone to the back of the room, because any melees you have would be like basically trying to get forward, despite you needing to deal with that stack marker, right? Did my stream die? Or is it just on my end that it is having problems? So you just want to stay up in the front. Still good for you? Well, fine. It's just I have like a little preview of the stream, and it's thinking, so I'll have to take your word for it. But it is simply this entire boss fight. It, like, by the time the boss starts to get creative with the mechanics, which is around now, it's over. There's also the funny bit that I don't know if you just noticed there. If you turn your camera just right, the boss just despawns. Anyway, that is a big side quest. Weird. Well, I hope that I'll have to just assume that the stream is working, because it seems like my preview is just completely dead right now. Okay, now it's fine. Now it's fine. Weird. YouTube things. Right, so next we're doing 5, 6, 7, 8 roulette, and if you would like to join me for it, come over to me. And once again, if you want to come along, but there you can see over there's already people, just come over. We'll figure out so that we like bring 4 people. Mokius wants to come along. Mokius also has a job to level. That makes sense. Who can / wants to heal in the group? Oh, Kitsuneko's also here. Now it starts to get convoluted. Do we actually have people that can? Are we actually able to do this? Just checking. I'm pretty sure that... I don't think Kitsuneko, do you have a tank or a healer at level 50? Slash, do you even want to? That of course also matters. Because this might be complicated if Amokius wants to play Machinist, which I would like to acquiesce if I can. Oh, sorry. The thing is, we need a tank and a healer. That's why I said, Kitsuneko, do you have a tank or a healer at minimum level 50? Because alternatively, Amokius would have to do it. And, well, I know Amokius has tanked, I believe, tanked and healed for us on previous streams. The thing is that we need 2 people to flex for this to work. Okay, that works. We are so many people here. We need more people. We already have a second full group. Sorkai. Oh yeah, Warrior can solo this dungeon, by the way. Did you know? Overwhelming force! Now I just have to run with my Dreadworm trance. Oh boy. This is an awkward level range for Summoner. That is what we call a very, very, very large pull. Ow. I think I was supposed to say ow there. Sorakai. I don't think anyone actually did that, and also that was the dumbest time in the world for me to use Dreadworm Trance. It's fine, I'm actually using Dreadworm Walk, as you can see. That is actually what I'm doing. I'm just using Dreadworm Walk, don't worry about it. That's my my new signature move. Sorakai. That's really good. Finally, I actually lined my Dreadworm Trance up with something where it's helpful, and then not really. Let's take a stroll again. It's called. Don't worry about it. It's Dreadworm Stroll. That's the new name. Dreadworm Stroll. You use it for walking decisively. Oh, you're over halfway in Stormblood, Kitsuneko. That's nice. Egg. Oh, only one of them hatched, huh? At least you get the complimentary sweets for your dread. Could you imagine if you had to like attack a certain number of times to activate your gems? your Lego pieces. By the way, just heads up, Ansu here does AoE damage, like, wow. So be careful, Neff. I don't know if you're hearing this. I have had situations where we had to like limp through this pack because like the healer or multiple people even just get randomly smacked because the Ansu just suddenly decide, oh, actually you're dead. Just now I realized that we do actually have a raid buff. Right, so I summoned you here, Ruby Kabi, just to watch the chaos. Because apparently the boss just kind of left. It's always funny when you do the summon and the boss, the target just leaves, so your summon just comes down like, alright, what's happening? Where's everyone? And they just stand there for a few seconds. Oh boy, Kitsu, you're not doing very well. You thought Summoner was a mage. It's actually a melee DPS. It's a nice shiny ponytail. Yeah, that would be a really, really weird mechanic, if nothing else, Mandalore. If you had like a fixed amount of time to like build your Legos. My ley lines! I can just imagine the Black Mage just exclaiming in a pained voice, "My ley lines!" As the boss leaves. Come back! You must die to my ley lines! I only put down my ley lines once every 2 minutes. My ley lines! Oh, nice. I had a nearly 200 crit directed with my book. Boss, are you aware how expensive these ley lines are? Well, they're free, but it's a principle. You can't just leave when I put down my ley lines. That's rude. Hey Murphy, hope you're doing well. Oh, Solicization, we all agree on that. That's basically just an unproven fact that ley lines are actually targeting reticles. The bosses just see the bullseye and go, oh, perfect. Now I know where to place it. Bruh. My Lego pieces! You know, this kind of works. I don't even have, like, GCD, like, stuff to spend so long. So, like, actually getting a few GCDs of downtime works really well with this level of Summoner. Because that just means I can, like... Oh, perfect, look, Dreadworm Trance is ready again. Less Ruin 3 filler. Oh, the same side again? Really? Okay. If you insist, buddy. Are you serious? He iframed my Ruby Ruin. He actually iframed it. You can't kill me, I'm doing a mechanic. Glad to hear that, motherfucker. Now we just have leveling left before we are able to start going to all the 8-man content. Who went into the other 5, 6, 7, 8, and where did you land? I think Garcel led that group. Let me just see if I can find Garcel. Keeper of the Lake. Keeper of the Lake. Are you getting far? The boss dodge rolled your Ruby cast. Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're at the. I think they're at the final boss. Hey Zach, hope you're doing well. The boss dodge rolled your Ruby. The saddest part is I used Swift cast to like hurry it out because I knew he was leaving, and then he just went, too late. Too bad, so sad. Deal with it. I'll wait. That way we can at least, like, we can either, like, rearrange the groups, or we can, at least start around the same time, to make, like, to have fun with that. But, I don't want anyone to, like, feel like, oh, we can't queue for anything else, because then we just miss out. Like, I know that there was a secondary group, I was made aware of that, so I'll wait for them. We even queued for the same thing. Hey Drutharian, hope you're doing well, aside from the unfortunate lack of access to EU. How do y'all like my inventory? I think it's pretty clean. There they are. Right. I'll go over here, and if you would like to join my group specifically for leveling roulette, just come over to me. And then we'll see how many wants to come along. I had never realized that... I don't know if it's Hrothgar specifically, or if it is, like, male pose, but it never occurred to me that they have a completely different Dragoon pose. We are actually 8, exactly. Assuming Tay isn't also wanting to come along. How about I invite everyone? That way we can figure out how to like split into 2 groups, unless you're already in a group with Garcel, in which case you might not have to crash your group just for this, if you'd rather just stick together. I will try to invite. I'll try to invite everyone. And then we'll figure out what we do from there. We have 8 ready. That is at least good when we get to the 8-man content. It's the elf bench. 8-man level. If only. If only. Well, we have a pretty mixed group. So... we can split up in 2 groups. The important thing is that we don't end up in a situation where one of the groups can't actually make a team because they are lacking tanks or healers. If you... That of course also works. Garcel started writing the roles they want to play. 999 die. Of course it's cherry pink. Thank you, Zip. Of course it's pink. It's the one I'm using. I wish my room was as clean as that inventory. Nice. Sometimes I think about that too, but it's not so bad. I'm glad to hear that, Mandalore. It's not the most clear thing to test, and more modern MMOs sometimes just forgo dot snapshotting, so it is absolutely understandable to assume that it isn't in the game. It looks like in the party that we can absolutely put together 2 teams. I think the more fair way to do it is if I go with 3 people that wasn't in the group for the 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that alright? Now that of course leads to the new problem, because there's 4 people in the group that weren't in the last roulette. Maybe keep a mentor in each group for bonus buffs. That is a good point. Although, as far as I can see, there's only 1 person benefiting from it. So the important thing is that Kitsuneko is either in my party or Amokius' party. I think. I don't quite understand why it is specifically Amokius who gets the XP bonus thing here. It's a little strange. So I also know Amokius was just playing tank to fix the group. So the guy isn't mentor enough. Yeah, I don't even know. Because it just says XP bonus. And I'm pretty sure you can both be a returner and also a mentor, depending on when you returned. I don't even know. But you only have return of like 3 days, and Amokius was here last week, I'm pretty sure. So that can't be it. Strange. Very, very strange. Oh, it could be that it's the same data center that is causing it. I think that is the reason. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. So, how about if Gazel, Kitsuneko, Nep, and Amokius make a group. That is a perfectly... Well, Ymir now left this group. That would lead to 2 balanced groups, and that would also mean that the Mentor and the Sprout is in the same group. Is that alright? Then we can all pair up together for the trials and normal raids and everything. Why did you leave, Ymir? I had just figured out the solution. No, I just made a different group for them. I just fixed that. The stream delay, right. A lot of delay. Let me see. 1, 2. Arcanum, I do believe it gives a bonus, yeah. 5 Daydream says, sorry to randomly butt in with a question. What do you all think is the fastest, easiest way to get commendations for the mentor status? Queue as a healer, especially if you queue as an astrologian, because just passing out cards to people tends to make people want to give you their commendation. And queue for content that is relatively short. I have heard that guild tests are effective. Although in guild tests, many of them you don't even have cards, so that can of course also push in the opposite direction. Uh-oh. How did I manage that? Yeah, guild tests on a healer is probably quite effective. Watch this! I'm using Scathe for non-zero DPS gain. Incredible! Yeah, as Alexander says, those things also help. Like, just being friendly in general. The only reason why I'm saying, like, play healer, for example, is because that can often... like, that just amplifies it, but ultimately what helps the most is to just be friendly and helpful. It's trying to get commendations on hard mode is trying to do it as a DPS. Like, that's at least for certain. We had Titan. Oh. Well, I mean, you could do another one if you like. That is a massive difference. Did you remember to set it to limited leveling? Or did it not work because you didn't have? Like, if you have someone in your group that is, like, massively higher level than their MSQ, for example, then often the limited leveling just won't work. Oh, that can happen to the best of us, Gazel. That has totally not happened to me many times. Isn't he supposed to switch to, like, 2 lanes of circle AoEs? Weird. It's very easy to forget. It is weird that limited leveling roulette isn't like something you toggle and then it's just on. Like the setting that makes it so that you can join groups already in progress is something that you just set once and you're done. Like it's just once and then it remembers between sessions. Weirdly, limited leveling isn't that. Very true, Alexander. That's also the thing. In my video about what a mentor's job actually is, the reason why my fun fact at the end like mentions that there are ways to like farm commendations and then conveniently doesn't actually explain how to do it is because for the most part, if you don't have the commendations, then maybe it's like you don't have like maybe it's not time to be a mentor yet. Like, I don't know, sometimes people are, like, already skilled and ready to teach by the time they have, like, 200, like, commendations. And sometimes they aren't. The thing is, the commendation system itself is incredibly flawed. As we've talked about, some of the best ways to get, like, one of the ways you can also impact your ability to get commendations is to have a nice portrait. Because some people will just give their commendations to whoever has the coolest portrait. And the simple fact that that is true for some players means that the commendation system might be meaningless. Is transposing into Ice 2 a DPS gain? Not really. I was just absent-mindedly doing that. I was mainly transposing back and forth to keep my stance up while running and casting Scathe, and then I realized that I was stuck in fire with less than full MP, and then I just decided to do it like that. What are your credentials as a mentor? I've watched all of Kai's guides. Oh man, I remember this boss was ridiculously hard to solo because its stack marker actually ignores defensive cooldowns. Such a weirdly random detail. It's unique damage and ignores defensive cooldowns. If I have the fat parade chocobo mount, am I ready to mentor? Interesting suggestion. Can I actually set up my AoE burst in time? Not really. Well... Yeah, the thing is, in regards to the transposing into Ice 2 thing, normally at higher level you would just have Umbral Soul, so you wouldn't be in the awkward position of having to do that. I wouldn't recommend transposing into Ice 2, like, under normal circumstances either. What are some of your thoughts on the mentor status? So the problem with the mentor status, as I have talked a little bit on and off about in some of my mentor-related videos, the key problem is that you're supposed to, like, be helping Sprouts, mainly, but that's not quite how your task is being described in the mentor contract itself. And even if it were, I think the core issue is that the check to see whether you are a capable mentor is basically, have you done a lot of content, which is not an indicator of whether you're a good teacher. Like, that is possibly the biggest problem with the mentor status, in my opinion, is that the things that they check you on does not actually determine whether you're actually good at mentoring at all. It's not... that is actually contrary, perhaps, to the way that a lot of people say, oh yeah, you should have done, like, savage raids and stuff to be a capable savage, like a capable mentor, because you need to be like a god gamer to be a mentor, which is not true. The people that say that are basically saying the same as, oh yeah, to be like a biology teacher, you have to actually be like an Olympic gymnast, which is not comparable, right? It has nothing. They're not the same. But the only way that they're correlated is that technically a lot of the information you learn as a biology professor would probably be applicable as like not a gymnast, but an Olympic sports person would be able to use much of this information. But the thing is, those like Olympic sports people, like, they know some stuff, but they probably have people to help them too. So the thing is, the mentor is supposed to be like a step down below an actual teacher, right? Like a teacher is someone, a blackboard, all that, how I sometimes show up my paint overlay and that and teach something. But you are not even a teacher. You're a mentor. You're basically supposed to be a slightly older sibling, for example, who's just trying to help their younger sibling understand this complicated game. That's it. That's all. That's what you're supposed to be. But the thing is, because that's not very clear, no one knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And the best, most effective way to make sure that the mentors know what a mentor is supposed to be and players know what a mentor is supposed to be is by having a better system for deciding who gets to be a mentor or not. But that kind of system would probably require like actual manpower, like a conversation with a GM or something like that to determine whether you are fit to be a mentor, which is a lot of work for something that we don't even know if would be very helpful at the end of the day. So that's why, to some degree, it's better to just try to make the best of what we have. And exactly, Mandalore, you don't need to be very good at the game at the end of the day. Like, you need to be, like, you don't need to actually understand a lot of things in the game to be a Savage Raider. you don't even need to understand a lot of the things in the game to like put together an optimized opener or rotation, or know what gears best, because many of these things are served up to you. The majority of the information is just handed to you, so it's not a problem. You don't need to look up all these things. Oh, right, let me just invite everyone again. I'll just continue on this thing I was talking about with mentors, though. The reason why, in my opinion, it isn't a requirement to have like savage raids cleared to be a mentor, or ultimates cleared to be a mentor, or any specific thing to be particular to be a mentor, is because what you need to be a mentor is you need to be good at teaching others things. Not like, you don't have to be a good teacher, but you have to be able to like at least help people, right? As Alexander says, they're there to set a good example. That's ultimately it. For the video coming out on Friday, I can say I landed in Shiva Extreme, which is why it is in the thumbnail. And what I noticed is that so we had a Sprout tank and a Mentor tank, and we had a Sprout healer and a Mentor healer, that was me. We also had a Mentor DPS and I think 3 Sprout DPS. And the thing is, the tank Mentor, just every time the Sprout tank was alive, the Sprout tank would taunt the boss, like taunt Shiva, and the Mentor tank would just let them tank. Every time, like even though the Mentor tank was like, knew that this player doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to die again, they just let them take over. The Mentor tank was basically just taking over when necessary, and then just let the Sprout handle it for the rest. Similarly, every time I had a res available, if my co-healer was dead, they were first in line, because, well, I need the other healer. Even if they're going to die immediately, they are the best target if we assume they know what they're doing. So like the Mentor tank was hand-holding the Sprout tank and letting them learn. The Mentor healer was hand-holding the Sprout healer and letting them learn. And, well, I mean, the Mentor DPS, the best they can do is try to do mechanics well, right? And then do as much damage as they possibly can, so that the rest of the group has to do less, so that all of the Sprouts have less to stress about. So like each of the mentors, where we weren't explaining tactics, that was the first pull. But we just played like mentors, right? We played like mentors and made sure that whoever we were basically mentoring, being the others of our respective roles, had a chance to learn. And that, I think, is a really good example of what a mentor is supposed to be doing. We didn't like, if we had wiped, I would have been like, yeah, so the bow thing, step behind Shiva, right? But we didn't wipe, so I never got to that. We didn't explain mechanics because no one knew what we didn't know or what we needed to explain. We had to take that in round 2 if we wiped. But I think that is like a really good example of what a mentor is supposed to be doing. And the thing is, in a dungeon, just for the sake of comparison, in a dungeon, a tank can't really mentor that well for a healer, for example, because like you could pull less if the healer asks for it, but if you're trying to teach them something, then the most effective way is to like push them a little bit, which might, like, the best you can do is just be friendly about it if the healer fails. A mentor DPS basically can't do anything for the rest of the group aside from like explain things. A mentor healer has like the space to like, they can carry a really bad tank as long as they don't pull too much, and they have like the potential overview on account of having extremely simple attack rotations, and their primary focus being looking at the rest of the party. They're more likely to see if someone is doing some major mistake, which means that like in a dungeon, a healer as the mentor is really powerful in my opinion, while in a raid or a trial or whatever, having like a mix of mentors and sprouts, for example, or a mix of mentors and, you know, regular players and sprouts, is very helpful, because then that means that the mentor in each role can, you know, try and assist the other one, and they can watch out for the specific person who like they would be able to give advice to. Yeah, exactly, Amokius. The best you can do is try to be friendly and give advice when you see someone is clearly making a massive mistake. And Phil says, if someone provokes a boss off of me, I don't try to take it back. It's not worth spinning the boss over. That's true. The reason why I thought it was fascinating in this particular extreme was because the mentor sprout, the mentor tank could have just like if they wanted to, because the sprout tank had to provoke to take over aggro, the mentor tank had the initiative. They could just say nope and just provoke back, and the sprout would have nothing they could do about it because the mentor was doing more damage. They were doing more enmity. So the mentor had the power to just deny the sprout this experience and just not let them if they wanted to. And if this sprout repeatedly dies, there could be an argument to be made that by forcing the boss to stick to one tank, it's going to spin the boss less than once every 30 seconds, or it's going to be less obtrusive. There's also the potential that the sprout will eventually give up trying to take over tanking. There's also the possibility that the sprout used provoke just, you know, catch up on enmity and didn't actually want to steal aggro, but they, like, we're in the middle of a fight. They can't explain that. So like there's a lot to take in here, but both arguments work. I just think it's very fascinating that this mentor tank just repeatedly went, sure, go ahead, try again. And it also just so happens that I had the like healing excess to help with that endeavor as well. 5 Daydream says, how would you handle a situation where player refuses the help though? Such as a scholar who's still using physic by level 50, or a tank who's trying to go full wall-to-wall on Stone Vigil. If the scholar is just using physic in a level 50 dungeon, I will usually say, if I'm certain that it is fine, I will typically say, you know, you can also attack a little bit. Have you considered using Art of War? But I will usually not push it. I'll suggest it maybe once or twice, depending on whether they respond at all. If they don't, then I won't bring it up again, unless it somehow becomes a problem throughout the dungeon. The thing is, I would rather have that they use physic than they stop healing me in a level 50 dungeon. Like, if they suddenly stop healing me entirely, then I have a problem. So that's why, like, if we were in a dungeon where I was playing warrior and I have raw intuition, then I'm way more likely to go, you know what, you could try and just attack for a little bit, just full on attack, because I don't need you to heal me. Like, give it a try. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then like I can use my cooldowns to make sure that some of the pulls are particularly fine, so that they have the opportunity to get this learning experience. But the thing is that I will usually not push it. Your point was on physic was because Adlocurium being stronger. Well, if they're going to spam a heal anyway, then physic is actually the more potent one, because it does more healing than Adlocurium, especially at level 50. Not a lot, but if they're going to be spamming a heal anyway, then that would be the one. But the thing is, them just using physic is not the problem here. The problem is that they're not using Art of War, which is what they should be doing in a level 50 dungeon most of the time. In regards to the full wall-to-wall thing, if the tank is going full wall-to-wall and they're using defensive cooldowns, like they're trying really hard, then we will take that depending on whether we wipe or not. because I'm a really, really good healer, I'm relatively confident that if I was in that pool as a sage or even a scholar, there's a reasonable chance that I could actually deal with that. But given the sheer magnitude of the pull, like the sheer mass of mobs, I don't think I can do that pull if the tank is not using any defensive cooldowns. So if we wipe because they're not using defensive cooldowns, then I'll be like, you can't pull like that if you're not using defensive cooldowns. Like, the thing is, and I talked about this on the Discord a little bit, if the player is pulling to their skill level, meaning if they're not using defensive cooldowns and they're doing single pulls or smaller pulls, then I'll not say anything. I might mention, have you considered using defensive cooldowns? You could pull more if there's not anything more pressing, such as they're not holding enmity well or something like that. I'll try, if I'm in a dungeon to teach someone something, then there's a reasonable chance that I'll try to teach them one thing. Just one. Because if I try to teach them like 5 things, none of it's going to stick. So I focus on trying to teach them just one thing. So if they do the Giga wall-to-wall pull and we survive, but they didn't use defensive cooldowns, I would still say you should consider using defensive cooldowns if you're pulling like that. You would not have survived this with a different healer, probably. And if we don't survive, that is an even easier opportunity for me to say you can't pull like that without defensive cooldowns. And if they pull less, then I'll focus on something else. Like, I'll be like, well, have you considered using defensive cooldowns? And you might be able to pull more if you do that, and things like that. But it depends on what happens. It depends on the person, in a way, you could say. Also, hey, Angel, hope you're doing well. And yeah, I do agree with that, Arcane. If you can get, like, close to half of the group be mentors, then there's a way bigger opportunity for the mentors to teach the Sprouts something in a really difficult encounter. Alexander adds, I'll mention on NA servers, most people don't want to be told what to do. Usually they'll ask if they need help. It wasn't always like that, but as of late I've seen it more often. See, that is also what I've heard, and I think we've talked about this before, that it seems like it is the case that there's a massive difference between regions. And hey Lawrence, hope you're doing well. Why is it only Dark Knights in my dungeons today? Congratulations, Lawrence. I hope you enjoy your island. Right. We are doing trials next. Do we have a full group? I think this works, right? I just want to check. Oh. Oh. I really was hoping you'd do minimum item level trial roulette. That would have been fun. Yeah, that is like... I've heard that one as well, Alexander, that it isn't uncommon that people just don't want advice, apparently, on the NA data centers. In my experience, people generally pretty accepting of being given advice suddenly in EU. To my experience, it seems like they are. But the thing is, that's the thing. That's also why I put together this video talking about the subject, is specifically because who knows, maybe it's something with me. Maybe the reason why everyone's having, like, a lot of people are having trouble actually, like, giving advice is because, and I'm not, is maybe because I'm doing it differently. I don't know. I doubt that that's it. That's part of the reason why I, like, went and checked. And, like, tried and do some roulettes. In NA, advice giving is a skill. You have to take care to make people not feel like they need to defend themselves. That is true, but here's the thing. I try to do the same thing when I'm teaching in EU. Like, that's the thing, is that usually I try to make it clear that, oh, what you're doing is fine, but you, like, it could be better. Instead of, like, saying you're doing it wrong. And that's why I'm saying maybe that's the reason why I'm not having any pushback issues. But it is very, very possible that it would be a lot harder on NA. I think it's extremely funny that, like, that it might just be me, but I feel like when they reworked this boss fight, they made it almost like a Moogle, like, comedy version of Seed of Sacrifice. Like, it's a little hard to explain, but it feels like they're using like a similar idea. It's Moogles instead. Which I think is really, really, really funny. Oh, what is this mechanic? Oh, that. I don't know why I ended up near that one. I think it just looked completely wrong at it. But it ended up working fine. I'm glad to hear that, Banana Rose. Thank you. And yet, it depends on how the advice is given, and it also depends on the person. Like, one of my worst duty roulette experiences was on EU, and I think it was an expert. I don't know if it was expert roulette. It was in Dead Ends. So it could have been level 90 roulette, but it was quite early in Endwalker still, so it is possible Dead Ends was just still part of the rotation. And the tank didn't use defensive cooldowns. Like, I could carry him, but I wasn't really feeling it on account of the fact that we were like 30 minutes from weekly reset. And I wanted things to go a little faster. If I had to carry him, I would have to attack less. So I asked him to use some defensive cooldowns, and the first time, he didn't really react, but he used Living Dead while at full HP, and didn't, you know, trigger it in time, because he used it quite suddenly, and then didn't reuse anything else. And then when I asked him again, could you please use some defensive cooldowns? If you're going to pull like that, you can't not use defensive cooldowns. This is a difficult dungeon. And he said, you don't pay my sub. And then we went at the first boss, and he died 2 times because he didn't respect the boss mechanics at all. And we wiped. And the DPS players apologized to the tank. I don't even know what they were apologizing for. So I left the group. Now there was a pretty good chance they weren't going to make it in time for the daily reset. Sad. Sucks to suck. What a day. I didn't bother reporting them to mine. I think maybe I did report them, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. And looking at my history... Let's see, someone in the loop room Regine, that AFK'd. AFK. See, the thing is, I haven't actually reported anyone for something not related to AFKing or unsportsmanlike behavior. And technically, that wasn't unsportsmanlike. That was just being mean. And then, after that, I realized what I should have done. And that's why when people ask, what do you do in a situation like that? That's when I give them the advice I think is the funniest thing you can do in such a situation. You ask the tank, could you use some defensive cooldowns? And they say, you don't pay my sub. You stop using cooldowns as a healer. You just flat out stop using defensive, like any cooldowns whatsoever. If you're a DPS and you're seeing it happen and you're seeing the healer do it, you also stop using cooldowns. So damage just drops like a rock. Like, things just grind to a halt. And when the tank inevitably dies, if they continue pulling like they're a big shot, we're going to wipe. And when the tank says, heals, where are my heals at? You're like, well, like, I'm not going to use cooldowns if you're not going to use your cooldowns. So I'm just going to cast Diagnosis repeatedly. And if that isn't enough, then you don't pay my sub. So, you know... Like, that's the thing. If their argument is, I don't have to use cooldowns and you can't tell me otherwise because you don't pay my sub, then I can stop using cooldowns and you can't tell me otherwise because you don't pay my sub. So, don't use that argument. Like, ever. Any of you, don't ever use that argument because it can be flipped on you. Even if you think it's funny, it can be flipped on you. And you're not going to get anywhere. Like, you can also spin it further. The person says, you don't pay my sub, therefore, you can't tell me how to play the game. On the other hand, them playing terribly poorly is eating my sub. And they're not paying for that either. So, can we maybe speed it up a bit so we can stop playing because you don't like me and I don't like you? Right? Like, there's a few arguments here. And none of them says that you don't pay my sub is good. Your sub includes cooldowns. That's true, Mandalore. 5 Daydream says, why or how did the mental rotation go bad? I see so many people pointing at mentors being usually worse at the game. The reason for that is confirmation bias. I talk about this in my What is a Mentor's Job actually. You might not have realized that that was what I was talking about because I didn't use the word confirmation bias, partly because some people don't know what that actually means. So I explained what I mean by that in the video instead of saying it's confirmation bias, and people sit there like, I don't know what that means. So I just explain what it is. If you go into a dungeon, a random dungeon, and there's a sprout in the group, and they play incredibly well. Like, they're extremely good. They're using their cooldowns exactly on time. They're actually doing crazy good damage if they're a DPS. You know, the drill. They're doing extremely well. You will remember that that sprout was really good, right? If you instead do the same thing, but the sprout is bad, then you're just going to be like, well, it is a sprout. It's okay. Like, they're new players, they're expected to be bad, right? Makes sense. So you remember the really good sprout, potentially, but you don't care about the bad sprout. You don't care. You don't even think about it because it makes sense that they're bad when they're bad. And it's exciting when they're good. Now, flip this on its head and say that you go into a random dungeon and you have a mentor in your group. And they're incredibly good. You don't really remember that because you're expecting the mentor to be incredibly good, right? They're mentors. To some people, mentors are supposed to be god gamers, right? So they're expecting that the mentor's good. So it's not anything special. They don't remember that. They will not memorize that in the slightest. You do it again, the mentor's terrible. You remember that because they're not supposed to be bad, right? So every time you have a good sprout, you remember it, and every time you have a bad mentor, you remember it. But you don't remember the good mentors or the bad sprouts, because it's like they're the expected result. The bad mentor and the good sprout are the outliers that you'll remember, and that leads to this confirmation bias. And the thing is, at some point, people will also just like agree with each other that, oh yeah, all mentors are bad and all that, and like this like word of mouth thing spreads, and then suddenly like it's worse than it actually is. So The problem is that, yeah, there are some mentors that are bad, but there are a lot of great mentors. It's just that there are also a lot of bad ones. And the problem is just that once the general consensus is that mentors bad, it can be really hard to recover from that. Which is why I make videos talking about the subject. Like, what is a mentor actually supposed to be doing? Like, listen, and this is what I also pointed out in the video, the mentor can be garbage at like 011 and not understand larboard starboard. But the mentor is automatically good if the mentor isn't mean when they fail. Like, if they gracefully fail and say, oh yeah, well, I've had problems with this mechanic, I guess I'll have to look it up. Does anyone know like a good thing to memorize this? And then someone goes, larboard is left. And then they go, all right, then they've still done well as a mentor because they're not expected to be god gamers. In fact, a mentor is successful as long as they aren't worse than all players. As long as they can teach someone something, they're acceptably a mentor. But that's because they chose to use the word mentor. They should have used a different word if they didn't want it to be compared to being a mentor. HK says, I usually go into duties expecting everyone to have 3 fingers and half a brain cell. See, that's also the thing that I also talked about in the damage dealing bottleneck video. If you are not, you have to assume everyone's bad until the opposite is proven. And similarly, this also aligns with how I've explained how to tank. Like, with a warrior, use bloodwetting aggressively, because your healer has to assume you're an idiot until you've proven otherwise. Like, these things make sense. And the only reason why the warrior goes, well, I'm not an idiot, is because they know that. Because they're the warrior. The healer doesn't know that. Like, when you go into the dungeon, you also have to assume the healer's an idiot. Until otherwise proven. The only difference is that the warrior might not have to care about whether the healer's an idiot or not, while the healer has to care about whether the tank is an idiot. So they have to, like, make that assumption. And Gleaming says, I've only once gotten a, can you use more defensive cooldowns? And the answer to that is, sure, my bad. Exactly. I've also... like, the thing is, I've had the exact opposite experience in Dead Ends as well, where I think it was a paladin, who, like, the thing is, what I did was I intentionally let them drop really low on HP, like below 50%, even though I was a barrier healer, and then being ready to, like, pull them back up, because I was checking, are they holding their cooldowns as a panic button? And sure enough, the instant they dropped, like, below 50%, the cooldowns started coming. So I was like, when we got to the first boss, I was like, can you wait a moment? Can you just stop for a second? You're supposed to use your defensive cooldowns preemptively. They're not panic buttons. Like, keep one rolling all the time. And for the rest of the dungeon, this man did that. I was just like, oh, I'd never considered that. So, like, that's the exact opposite experience of that dude that said you don't pay my sub. And I believe those 2 encounters was, like, within days of each other as well. So it was really weird. Oops, sorry. And that's also true, Cat Damon. I don't know if you mean FR as in French, but indeed, you don't realize if you're, like, if you're in a group with, for example, a French person and they play perfectly, then you don't notice. But if they are bad and you try to help them and they say, I don't speak English, then you remember them. Which similarly can lead to these weird things, which I've seen in multiple games where, for example, people say that French people are bad, but they're not. It's just that you remember the times when you had to try and communicate with someone who wasn't great. And that can happen. Mm. See, Gold says for dungeons, if we wipe twice to a wall, I just suggest we go slower. That's been quite relevant in these Shadowbringers dungeons. Oh yeah, I could imagine that. My experience with wall-to-wall pulls is, if I'm the tank, I'll pull like however much I'm confident we can take, and I feel like I'm pretty accurate with that usually. And if that goes poorly, I'll apologize and suggest I pull less. In my experience, most of the time, the healer will either say, okay, or they will alternatively say, no, run that back. I just missed a button. That was on me. Go again. We can do this. Do the same thing. Exactly like that again, please. So the key thing is like, now you might be shocked, but the most important aspect of tanking and healing together is communicating with each other. I know. Insane. Absolutely incredible. A revelation like no other. Like that is the reason. But like it is difficult. I've also talked about like, as if you're the tank and you ask the healer if you can pull a lot, then you put the ball in their court. If they say yes and you wipe, then it's their fault, right? Because you asked and they said yes. If you don't say anything and just go for it, then you can just say, sorry, I'll pull less, and then they can grab the ball and say, no. Because the people that don't want the ball in their court would rather you didn't kick it to them in the first place. But the people that can take it will just take the ball and say, pull more, please. So it's just easier, in my opinion, to not like avoid the question and just pull aggressively and take the blame if it goes wrong. Alexander says, people who say French players are bad have clearly never played Guild Wars 2, 1 and 2. Or Guild Wars 1 and 2. The French players were cracked. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the thing is, if you wipe once, that is absolutely a reason to reevaluate what's happening. But the key thing is talking. Like, just because you wiped doesn't mean you have to like change strategy. You just need to talk about it. If you wipe, ask your group if you should change strategy, especially if like you're the tank, because you can only do so much. And you know what you know, and the healer knows what they know. They might know that they didn't actually play very, very well. The DPS might have been holding back on cooldowns and might be like, oh, right, cooldowns. Like one of the funniest experiences I had, like my first discovery of the fact that you can pull 5 packs at the start of Mount Gulg was me queuing. Like I was doing my last 2 dungeons to level Dancer to 80 back in Shadowbringers, and it was my last job to 80 now that I remember. I landed in a pre-made. And we wiped the first time. And if I remember correctly, wordlessly, they just went and pulled it again. And I just went with it, like, this time was ready, and we actually beat it. And the extra funny thing is that I obviously had to queue twice, because you need a lot of experience to go from 79 to 80. And when I queued again, I landed in the same pre-made. They knew who I was, I knew who they were, we knew we were going to pull all that. So we got it first try. Anyway, that was a huge sidetrack, I suppose, and I don't know if anyone is then now going to miss the, did I queue for that? We did queue for that. Going to miss, I'm going to do the normal raids because it's a little bit shorter. But if you want to come along for normal raid roulette, come over to me. And I'm guessing you don't have it yet? Normal raid. Do you have normal raid? Level 58? Well, HK, you would both need to be level 60 and also have the roulettes on, like the dungeons unlocked, or the raids unlocked to be able to go. Yeah, just to like round up on that, as I said, the problem with mentoring is that it is actually extremely hard to teach people things. And often people take that for granted. That you're just supposed to be, like, it's easy to teach, because if you're good at something, you could easily teach it. That's not how that works. As I said, I have a friend who didn't know that sprint had double duration if you used it outside of combat. And they said that after they had done an ultimate. So, like, achievements don't mean squat. Sprint. Sorry. Oh, they're just going for it, huh? That is also very true, Mandalore. That is actually like, that is part of the reason why Final Fantasy XIV is typically known for its, or it's somewhat known for its dance-style boss fights, compared to other MMOs, especially World of Warcraft, where a dance fight is basically like a 10-minute knowledge check, as you say. Do you remember how to do X? What you're supposed to do after X? And so on and so forth. And even then, there's also sometimes places where you realize that that extremes, like old extremes, sometimes have the same kind of mechanics as like normal content a few expansions later. Like I just want to highlight that Shiva Extreme has, I think maybe it also has it on normal, but it never really comes up on hard. But it has this mechanic where it like puts down blue circles that gradually fill up the entire arena and then explode in the order they were placed in. This exact mechanic exists in Tsukuyomi at level 70 on normal. And it is approximately just as punishing as Extreme Shiva's version. The only real reason why there is a difference is because Shiva has a few more punishing mechanics on top. But just consider that for a moment, that there is a normal trial that has basically the same mechanic. It's just that now it's just supposed to be common knowledge. You're just supposed to know how to do it. Nice. Amokia says, Extreme Rameau was fun with randoms. I'm just glad I queued up with the other tank in a Discord call. Otherwise, it would have been a mess with the tank swapping. I have heard that. I have heard that before, that the problem with Rameau Extreme is that it's simply too tough if not both tanks are like in sync in a way, I think is what people usually say. That is also, by the way, part of the reason why my original video on the mental roulette used Ramuh as the backdrop, was because Ramuh is known to be particularly brutal for a level 50 extreme. Just checking, just asking again in case anyone's back and wants to come along. If you want to come along for Alliance Raid Roulette, come over to me. Oh, don't know if you're coming over to me. You don't have to join if you didn't actually want to, Amokius. We have space. You see, I have a few friends in the group that are there because there's the extra spaces. That is also part of the reason why I always say come over if you want to join. Because, who knows, maybe there is a seat that is like specifically being held just because no one else wanted it. Ah, right. Yeah, that makes sense, Amokius. It is quite interesting because it's very funny how it works almost in reverse of all that in the E5 version of the fight. Where you only want like one orb. And if you get 3, it becomes a problem. Kick out Sippy isn't chilling at the house. No, you don't have to chill at the house. I asked in the free company chat if you wanted to come along. And he said, yeah, if there's space. Thank you, Brian MC. I think. Suddenly, Megalovania. I have had EX Ifrit once as well, and I do believe I did it as tank. If I remember correctly, we did not figure out how to deal with the tank switching. Like, we just never did. It just went badly every time. But eventually we managed to beat through it despite that. Like, somehow we managed to get through it with enough people alive that it wasn't a problem. There's some incredible interrupting going on here. Ow. The swipes. Also, World of Darkness, Lamau. Crystal Tower Roulette, am I right? Hey Needlemere, I hope you're doing well. I feel like it's been a while. That we had a Leviathan EX where we were close to finishing but kept dying due to cleaves and AoE heal spam. In Mental Roulette. Wait, you wiped? Because of AoE heal spam? I don't know the particular encounter well enough to know how that correlates. Is there something that makes spamming heals a bad idea? Kill the ads. Ow. Ow. There's a debuff called Briny Mirror that is on a random target. Most likely the tank. Right? Well, what does that do again? I'm glad to see you, Needle, yeah? You can't heal them. Because it mirrors to something, or it does the reverse? It punishes heals on the selected target. Oh, so if you just, like, aggressively spam AoE heals, someone dies. Bad stuff happens. Incredible. This is a, like, 10 out of 10 boss mechanic discussion. Don't heal the person with the Briny Mirror debuff. If you do, bad stuff happens. Yes. One healer in Leviathan Extreme gets a debuff that makes their heal range smaller with each stack. Comes from healing spells. Oh. That is really interesting. That is a really interesting mechanic. And then they implode. That is a really, like, very, very unique mechanic. Oh boy. Another one. This mechanic sucks, especially as a blue healer. Oh, I could imagine. Now you had to use Palm Cure. Something I think is really fun with this boss, speaking of, I never knew that, and the boss mechanic, is that I have multiple times gotten back to this boss and realized that it had a new mechanic. Not as in that it had a new mechanic added to it, but rather that a mechanic I never knew it had was on it. Let me take that off of you. Right, apparently, if you know the Pyretic debuff, you know, the one that says if you do anything, it hurts very much, and you, for example, see in Seed of Sacrifice, yeah, Five-Headed Dragon has that. I have never seen it use it, but it has it, apparently. I just randomly discovered it when looking for this mechanic in the game. I've also heard that the people praise the idea of doing old alliance raids at minimum item level for that exact reason, Phil. Because then you often get to actually interact with the mechanic. One of the weirdest ones that that I stumbled upon, I think I have mentioned this one before, but I randomly discovered that allegedly, because I couldn't find like specific proof of it specifically, but it looks like, from what I could find, that A Realm Reborn didn't have diminishing returns for at least not all stuns at the start of A Realm Reborn. Because I found an Ifrit guide that basically instructed the tanks to use like stuns and stuff like that to intervene every time it was trying to do a specific mechanic. It was a text guide, so I can't for sure say how real it was. But the reason why I think that it sounds real is because there was like an addendum underneath that was like, you can't do that anymore because diminishing returns. Which is just like, wait a minute, there wasn't diminishing returns at the start of the game and you could stun Ifrit. That sounds incredibly overpowered. And the reason why I'm saying I don't quite know how legitimate it sounds is because if that works the way that I think it works, then a white mage, hypothetically, would be able to just spam stuns endlessly, right? Oh. Yeah. So a really neat trick to make that suck-in move completely fail is to just jump off the platform when you're targeted. Local gladiator bullies primal guard with shield bash. Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, very true, Corey. You can still stun Ifrit. I think you can also stun him in Extreme. The thing is that because of diminishing returns, you can't really do it consistently. Like you have to pick and choose your spots. But you can. Which I think is an extremely fascinating feature of A Realm Reborn. I think the reason why they phased that out was because, well, it can be really hard to make an actually difficult encounter if all bosses can just like get denied by you clicking stun at the right time. So like to make that balanced, they would probably have to make bosses unreasonably difficult and assume that you're using them, and I imagine that it is more fun if the boss actually gets to do its mechanics, if that makes sense. Like the same argument for why people aren't super like not everyone is super happy about Crystal Towers simply because, well, because everything dies so easily, you don't get to experience any of the mechanics. Similarly, if you could, this is going to hurt a lot. Ow. Because, like, if you could just stun repeatedly, that is essentially the same effect as if you could just skip all of the mechanics. Like, it's basically the same. So I could imagine that there's a correlation there. I just want to highlight for a moment that despite there being people, at least one person in a different alliance that acknowledged that it's all in the belly, only our alliance went in the belly. And that's also a reason why you send everyone in the belly, because You can't even be certain, ow, that even though everyone says to go in the belly, that everyone does. Ow. Well, very small ow. Gleaming says, can we actually all go in the belly? Technically, yes. The reason why people say all in the belly is because it's making fun of the original rule set that people went by, which was A deals with ads, which they typically don't. B goes in the belly, and usually not every one of them does. And C deals with chains, and also the C tank tanks the boss. The problem is that it's not common that A actually deals with the ads. It's not common that all of B actually goes in the belly. And, I mean, you can say that it is it's C tank that is supposed to be the main tank, but good luck with that. And who knows if C is actually going to do the chains. And the problem with that is that despite everything, the only thing that matters, the only thing that can wipe the raid against Cerberus is if people don't go in the belly. Firstly is people don't go in the belly, and the second is if people don't deal with the chains correctly. But the thing is, it takes like 1 or 2 players to deal with the belly. Or to deal with the chains, sorry. So if you just can and they can deal with the chains when they come out even. So you don't have you don't need a lot of you just need one alliance to deal with stuff in that regard. But people don't even do their roles anyway, so the joke is that there's no point telling people what their responsibility is, because no one's doing it anyway. And the only thing that actually matters is that you get enough people in the belly. And the reason why that is so crucially important is because most players in the alliance or in the alliance raid might not actually know how to get in the belly. So if you demand everyone goes in the belly, there's a reasonable chance that you'll get 5 people to go in the belly. So that's how the joke kind of developed. Is because by asking everyone to go, you pray and hope that enough people will go that you can at least deal with the mechanic. Exactly, Alexander. Precisely. And it's just a joke. It's just a meme on the old copy pasta, which was A ads, B belly, C chains, which no one followed anyway. Even though it sounds like a bit, you can send everyone in the belly. It's just that by sending as many as you can in the belly, you usually get less than one alliance is worth. So that's why you try to convince everyone to go. That's also true. If you actually did send everyone in the belly, that could equally become a problem. I don't know what happens if Cerberus ends up alone outside. It is absolutely safer if everyone does the mechanics right, Phil. It's basically just that, tell me, do send me a picture if one day you do Alliance Raid Roulette randomly with randoms and you actually wipe because too many people went in the belly. The reason why the belly is that important is because the way that you wipe on Cerberus is that the belly isn't done correctly. Right, I was actually about to, like, segue into that naturally. Amokia says, what actually happens if belly mechanic doesn't resolve? I know with the chains he keeps empowering, right? Correct. As the fight progresses, when he breaks his chains initially at the start of the fight, he starts gaining stacks of, like, a haste buff. And that stacks indefinitely and will eventually, like, overpower your group. Guaranteed. He will reach a point where he's just like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, and just, like, kill you faster than you can res. And it obviously doesn't help that he suddenly doesn't have a tank tanking him anymore. The way you reset it is when you put, like, when you break his belly, he gets stunned, where you know he's just standing there shaking for like 30 seconds or more. And the thing is, if you don't put the chains on him after that, he'll just resume from where he was with the haste stacks leading to a wipe. That's why it is extremely dumb to greed on the chains. Put them on early, because if you greed it and fail, then you wipe. Despite doing the belly correctly. The only way to reset the stacks is to put the chains on him, and you can only put the chains on him when he has a stomach ache, which you do with the belly. And that's why the belly is so important, because all the adds, like, I mean, you can basically have a melee DPS deal with an add each and you're fine. So, like, those are completely irrelevant, basically. Like, not completely, but almost irrelevant. You can have, like, so the adds don't matter. So the belly can kill you and the chains can kill you. So those are the only important mechanics. Like, those are the only important mechanics. Everything else you can deal with on the fly, but if those two things fail, you wipe. Fails, as always, see people saying delaying chains skips mechanics, which is funny because there are no mechanics other than abandonment. Well, I mean, while he's standing there stunned, he's not doing anything, which means that he's not doing, like, for example, you could say that his frontal cone tank buster, which gives a stacking slashing debuff, is technically a mechanic, and he's not doing that while he's stunned. So, like, there's an argument to be made that just having him stand there gives you free damage uptime, which is true, but you don't need that. It's also, like, he's also going to break it again, but the thing is, you don't actually need that much time to kill him. Like, you don't need all that time. That's why there's no reason to greed it. You just need to reset him once and you're good. Typically, at least. Let me see, wasn't that the last one? It was, so that means that, well, we could start with P12 and then finish with the Alliance raid. But I will be right back, and then we will put together a group for P12. So I'll be right back. manatee moment. Quick, manatee, Q for P12S! Alright, I'm back. So Amokia said in game, I want to see all 24 people enter the belly now, just to see if Cerberus does anything or if he just stands there. Well, to see what happens, you would need 23 people to go in and 1 person to die outside. Right, so if you want to come along for P12N, so the final boss of the current raid tier on normal, come over to me. We're just doing 1 clear. If you'd rather skip, that's also fine. You of course need to have it unlocked. Cat Damon did not want to join, I take it. Or maybe you don't have it unlocked, I don't know. You don't have it unlocked, fair enough. Yeah, I think that is also what's going to happen, Shiro. That if Cerberus finds themselves entirely on their lonesome, if he finds himself entirely alone, he will probably reset, because that's what bosses do. Could go in unsynced with just 3 people. I suppose so. Do we have anything that requires more than 3? I don't believe so. You could do that. Oh, and there's one random DPS player that gets like 7 commendations if they wait long enough. Shiro says you could potentially wipe at Atomos. Well, oh yeah, that would rely on whether you can get it down before it sucks up someone. It's a little hard to see the boss mechanic with all this bright. Oh, whoops, stay on that side, my bad. My bad. But yeah, you could test what Cerberus does by checking. Like, by just having only 1 person outside. You could test that with, like, 3 or 6 people, I think, as you suggest. You may be wondering whether I actually looked at the boss. I didn't. So I just had to trust the rest of the raid looked. Because I forgot. Summoning Bahamut wouldn't help since Bahamut can't be targeted. And he doesn't attack if you're not attacking, to my knowledge. I don't think. Also, hey Steve, hope you're doing well. The thing is, you can avoid getting sucked in entirely by just stepping down from the platform. The question is whether that would reset the fight, because then there's no one on the platform and you wouldn't be able to get back up again, I don't think. And I forgot to go to the second one. Somehow survived though. My absent-mindedness is getting rewarded by not dying. And by having good healers. If I remember correctly, there's an intermission that happens right around the 4-minute burst. So there might be an advantage to holding if you don't, like, if you're not sure you can get everything pushed out in time. Depends on the job and the toolkit, of course. That's still in a minute. I think I just lost. Oh, I actually did manage to get it out in time. Hey Mia, hope you're doing well. What have you missed? Well, we're down to just doing P12 and then we do Alliance Raid. Oh no, I need to make sure I'm actually on the right side. And for anyone wondering why I keep doing the reverse primals after Phoenix, it's pretty much just because if I know that I'm fine to stand still, it doesn't matter what order I do them in on Phoenix, because I don't have any raid buffs anyway. But it matters on Bahamut, so I'll just do it reverse when doing the Phoenix section. So I'm not just like completely randomly tossing out spells. I am thinking about it. Just a little bit. But yeah, if it doesn't matter what order you're casting them in, which is true during Phoenix, after Phoenix, because no Searing Light and no 2-minute burst buffs, then do the ones that require you to stand still first if it's safe to stand still, right? I'm helping. I put a bubble on myself. Tiny little bubble shield. I have another one.
Such a singularly resolute soul. These chains are forged from the fabric of creation.
I believe there's a Shine Brilliant for me first. Yep. Shine Brilliant for me! Why is the tank not making a face north? Because they had to stand near the donut AoE. You had to do that at that specific moment. It's just a factor of the fight that you have to keep in mind. I don't know, Amethyst. I feel like it's an interesting callback. Although it does sound a little funny that she's really laying it on thick with the way that she says it. But I think it somehow makes it more memorable in a way. Sorry, just dying over here. Right. Hopefully I can breathe again. Gleaming says, I don't know what it is, but your longer streams always seem to run through the time of day where I need a nap. And then I wake up and you're still going. Well, this is actually my shorter streams. The longer ones happen on Saturday usually. Although I suppose sometimes I run a slightly shorter one. On a Sunday or something. But those are also completely random. But I'm glad that you get to enjoy both sides of your nap with more stream. Right, so... Okay. Bye then. We finish with Thalea. So if you want to come along for the new Alliance Raid Roulette, you come over to me. Or the Alliance Raid Roulette, the new Alliance Raid. What happened to Phil? Oh, you're turning on your VPN. Fair enough. Manatee ASMR to relax and sleep too. Steve says he's not actually still going. You're still napping and you're just dreaming. It's like, what was it we decided last week? That the Small Kai side quest streams are actually not real. It's just Small Kai imagine. Like, she's just dreaming. And that's why she wakes, like, the reason why she has to go to bed at the end of every stream is because she has to go and, like, dream the next part. Right, so we can have 1 tank, 2 healers, and 5 DPS. Is there any tank that doesn't mind not tanking? Maybe I'll get hit 1 time less at the final boss. Didn't you only get hit, like, once last time? I feel like you only got hit once. Or do I completely remember that wrong? Oh, once each time. Well, that's still pretty good. If I remember correctly, on my first week there, I died on both sets. I'm pretty sure. Either that or I like just spam healed myself through it or something. So don't worry about that. The key thing is if you're not getting hit like back to back to back, then you're likely to survive it. And for the most part, if you just stand where the ranged players are, then that is definitely a safe spot. At least for the first hit, usually they stand in a position where they're safe for 2 hits. Like if you want to be absolutely sure. I could imagine that, Cole. Alliance raid tanking is very, very chaotic. Get sniped? Are you also here? Oh, look!
Let us see how you fare against my servants.
Who are you rescuing, Sip? I'm guessing it's me. It wouldn't shock me, at least. That went pretty well.
Only to be expected for they who vanquished my pupil Beauregard.
But it is quite chaotic to tank Alliance race because you can't really communicate well with the other tanks, and usually they don't care. So like my best advice there is if one of the other tanks has their tank stance on, then you can possibly turn off yours at least for a bit and just let them take the lead.
I have looked forward to this moment, children of man.
Possibly. Just be ready if whoever happens to be tanking ends up dying, and just be ready for that. As far as I remember, I have never done this entire Alliance raid as a Black Mage, so this is going to be very interesting. And I did indeed plan it so that I would end up with Black Mage last for that. Specifically because I imagined that it would be the most interesting.
The rivers rage at my behest. Not all knowledge is wisdom.
Ah! I'm here thinking like, oh well, I sure hope it doesn't go on me because I can't move, and then I realize that the person who has the stack mark is the other Black Mage. Hey, Tay. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. Somehow it worked out. By the power of standing my ground and just hoping it went well. That is the playing Black Mage like aggressively is almost like a trust fall exercise, because you have to trust everyone else to just let you stand.
In deepest knowledge. Let flow the waters of your mind.
Oh boy, this mechanic is going to be quite brutal. I think this will work. Oh no. Yeah. I managed.
New perspectives, and you shall find new paths.
I don't want to seek new perspectives. I just want to fire 4. I just want to fire 4. It is quite funny that this mechanic basically plays out the exact same way every time, so you just learn where the safe spots are.
Small wonder the others have exalted so.
Oh, right. The knockback. I think I've placed it just right so that I can adjust. Where's the boulder coming? Where do the boulder be coming from? Oh right, there's 2 boulders. Well, you know what I mean. Need those that last GCD of ley lines.
'Tis time for a test.
'Tis time for a test.
Share with me your
And it's not exactly
ruminations.
math. Oh, right, there's a limit break to be used. I suppose.
Not all answers can be obtained through might.
I didn't mean to use Scathe there, but apparently I just did. Weird. Weird muscle memory there.
Well done, wise children.
I guess it was a muscle memory from a different job. I don't even know.
So far, I see. Come then, mortals.
And Steve says everybody else moving is in Final Fantasy XIV's rulebook, as Yoshi plays Black Mage. I suppose you're right.
Don't keep me waiting. Let me prepare a suitable stage for our union.
Ow. My knees! My knees! I was using those for standing on.
I'll teach you the ways of navigation. Mine are the waves and the winds.
Right. Go not first. Go not first. I hope this is far enough. It is! Perfect. Excellent.
Can you contend with she who rules the tides?
Probably not. I spent all of my instant casts.
My trident parts the very sea.
I can't actually cast the paradox in time. And even if I could, that wouldn't have worked very well.
You must make an ally of the wind.
Not taking that chance.
Rise above the white caps.
Left. Alright, then we go right.
Ah, you don't disappoint.
No. I didn't make it. Well, I tried. That has to count for something.
Like the stormy seas, I'm a harsh mistress. Brace for the storm!
Oh boy. That got a little awkward.
I trust you don't mind.
I don't know how much I actually got out of my ley lines there, but it didn't feel like much.
Pericos, Valios. Join us in the excitement. Dance upon the waves.
That is really costing me some casts here awkwardly. Left, then we go right. I think I'm good here. I'm pretty sure I'm good here.
That's the way, my clever serpents.
Clever serpent.
Feel the might of the
I can't finish that. Oh boy. Have this, I guess. This fight is particular. Like, I felt like the last boss was a lot easier to deal with. This is extremely chaotic.
It falls to you and yours to navigate the seas ahead.
After all this time, it feels strange calling to you thus.
How long am I flying? Can I get to refresh my... No? Please? Yes.
Thank you
Whew.
for making it this far.
Did no one try to blow kisses to our limb lane? Did no one try? I didn't notice. Have fun dealing with last boss's black mage. Well, I'm sure it'll be fine.
To face you. Strong are they who roam.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Stand firm amidst the storm.
I don't wanna. I want to stand not firm. I don't want to stand like firm Albert. Thank you. We call it a black mage chain. It's kind of weird.
You must persevere.
I'm glad to hear that, Zach. Maybe one day we'll be able to have actually a full pre-made alliance raid. That would be fun.
Wind, guide my arrow.
One day.
My bowstring sings.
Oh, right.
You can overcome this. I know you can. Arise!
I sure hope I don't fall for 15 seconds. Ah, my
Your
knees!
prayers have given us strength. By fighting you, that strength shall be returned to the star. Come! Grant us our heart's desire. Stay not your steps.
Dum da dum 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 dum. All the other way. Hey.
Those who hesitate are lost.
Oh, perfect. Nice. Thanks, I think.
Behold the Wanderer's arrow.
That works. Just barely. I don't think I can make it to that fire starter. I held on to it for way too long.
Here our journey ends.
Ow, 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 ow. I thought I was safe there. Guess not.
Blessings be upon you on the road ahead.
That is a weird thing to say as you throw massive hooks at us. Blessings be upon you. Have hook. I don't think this mechanic is resolving.
Ever be at your back.
The sweet soul of parting. I beg you.
The hooks are his blessing. Call me Uber. Yeah, you know, Tay, you might as well be. I think 3 times throughout that fight, 2 or 3 times, I just jumped specifically to Tay. That is Reese in game. This.
You're back.
I'm glad you decided to not actually do it, Angel. In case what you're suggesting is you were intentionally considering it.
What's the meaning of this?
Those ones I leave to you.
Oh, there's just one left. Then I guess I'll want triple flare or something.
It seems we're being summoned. Go, my friend. I will stay here with the others.
I'd never do that. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that, Angel. I guess I'll have to take your word for it. Oh, there's no point trying to do that because they're too big. Why are they so big? Why are you so massive? Look, it's Angelos, also known as Angel O's. That's why they're circular. Ba-dum-ching. I wonder if there's any first timers. Doesn't look like it.
Come, children. Fulfill our final.
Why, Sip? What happened? Who were you trying? Were you trying to yoink me? I thought it was a wall. Oh. Oh, I guess I don't need to do that. Well, I can do this and turn the mistake into a success. I actually had an extra despair that you don't normally get stocked somehow. Don't worry about it. Just by magic, I'm a mage. Don't worry about it. A donut at the end. Oh, can I actually make that?
Receive our love and transcend it.
I did, apparently. Incredible.
Blessings be upon their Theris.
Don't be afraid, we are angels. I know. But sometimes sometimes angels can be mischievous, right? Stars on high, fall as rain. I don't actually want you to be mischievous, but I know you are sometimes.
Mercy be upon our beloved children.
I don't know what it is, Tay, but you're just always in the perfect position for it. I don't know what it is. But it just works. See, again, it's just very effective. Just find a black mage that knows where to stand and just become additional black mage where they are. It's very smart.
In unity lies resilience.
Oh boy, that is a rough mechanic. I did that too soon. That should be the fun fact for today. You don't need to learn positioning as a black mage. Just learn a different black mage's positioning.
Not a single mote of strength shall we hold back.
Oh, I was really, really hoping that I had remembered that this was when they just do the oh well, just the AOE's, but it wasn't. Just learn how to taste ley lines.
Overcome our final test.
Oh yeah, true. I guess. Well, I don't know. I feel like most of the time when I jump to Tay, they don't have ley lines. Maybe that's the game plan. Look for a black mage without ley lines. In before the raid is just all melee and 2 sages hugging the boss. Oh boy. What is Kai's wisdom now? Good luck. What do I do if there isn't another range to follow? I don't know. You let me know what works for you. Oh right, we have a limit break. Well, had. And a donut at the end. Well, looks like Sip found his target. Right at the end. Don't want this or this or this or this. Do want that, but I don't think I'm winning it. Wow, we're 59. I'm sure that's very impressive. I am surprised that Sip decided to yoink Ymir. I was expecting that he was yoinking me. That is concerning, Tay. Tay says, my game kept freezing, so I was relying on stream for positioning. Meanwhile, I'm relying on Tay for positioning. Talk about the blind leading the blind, am I right? That's really funny. So what actually is happening is Tay is just always conveniently in my line of sight, because they need to be in my line of sight to know where they are. And I just go, oh, there's someone who I can jump to. That's nice. And they're just intent, like they're sitting there like, oh, please don't look away. Tay says, I'm super bad with reacting to random things, but I'm really good with memorizing patterns. So I kind of just remember where safe spots are or when to start slide casting my way to the right spot. That sounds like a really good skill if you're black maging it. One particular one that I thought was particularly impressive was when the boss used the quarter turn squares, and you already was in the safe spot. Like I can't remember if it always spins a specific way, but apparently you knew. That is true, it is a 50-50 chance. The position I chose was I tried to be as close to, like, somewhat in the middle, so that it didn't matter what way it decided to spin, but I suppose the alternative was the 50-50 gamble. Cat Damon says in-game, I'm always using arm's length on Big Arrow Man Tank Buster after the incident. Oh, right. Right. Yeah, because... Yeah, I have seen clips of healers just thinking it would be funny to just yoink a tank into the entire raid when the tank buster lands. And the thing is, the tank buster, it's not like super threatening for the tank, but it can basically kill a DPS or a healer outright. It can. Don't know how consistent it does, but it can, which is very fun if someone likes to use rescue. And now that Sip knows this information, I might have to be very concerned about doing Thalia with him in the future. Tay says, you could blindly follow me in Lunar Subterrane. I got that once often learning Black Mage. I can do it with eyes closed. So at the start of the stream, people were saying, I thought that, I believe someone said, you guys are getting Lunar Subterrane? I can't remember if it was Fel or Angel or who it was that said it. Could also be someone that left the chat since. But someone said specifically that. And now we know where they're gone. Tay has taken all these Lunar Subterrane runs. I also get them sometimes. Stop bogarting the getting Lunar Subterrane in the Expert Roulette or something. I also did notice on the final boss that there was a moment where Angel was like, had a tank buster right on me, and when Angel started moving away, that was that was about when I was starting to be concerned that they weren't going to move, and I started moving. Cole says, why does normal raids roulette say it needs DPS when the queue is 23 minutes? 23 minutes? That is quite wild. There are two possible reasons that can happen, Cole. The first reason is that the adventurer in need bonus seems to always be a few minutes behind. So if it switches, it usually stays on that for like a few minutes. And I can almost guarantee you, if you see it flip to DPS, unless you queue immediately, then 10 other people have already queued. It is no longer needed. We don't need DPS anymore because everyone just went wham and got it. Which then leads to a gigantic queue because, you know, among the 10 that immediately filled the need, 200 people also clicked queue. I'm of course exaggerating the numbers a bit here, but you get what I mean. So like if you're not the first immediately, then you don't get it. The second option is, and this is something with a normal raid specifically and a few other roulettes as well, given that the only requirement to get the normal raid roulette is that you have 2 normal raid encounters unlocked. That means that what it says that it is missing DPS in the queue, like in general, but maybe the reason is that there's like 5 groups that are missing DPS or something, but they're all in the Omega raid or the Near raid, not the Near raid, the Eden raid. But you might only have Alexander. So when you queue, it doesn't work. You will still get the Adventurer in Need bonus, but you don't have the specific encounters that there were need for DPS for, which then leads to this insane 23-minute queue. Although it has been a while since I've seen a 23-minute queue, even as a DPS. Yumi says, why can't I use emotes? In the chat or in game? What's happening? In the chat? Can you not? That's weird. You should be able to. I don't know. You think everyone's dying? Well... Cool says, I switched to Sage and the queue is 5 minutes. That is pretty funny that it just flipped from a DPS. It wasn't actually, it wasn't DPS in need. It was actually like a Scooby-Doo scenario of you like, a bit like getting unmasked, and it was like, it was me, tank in need all along. And I would have gotten away with it too, if it wasn't for you meddling DPS players and healer players queuing to check me. I would also, in most cases, if I see a 10-minute queue, I will only stay in the queue if I'm like, well, I don't have anything else to do. And just like, sit there and spend time. If I want to get into like if it's a roulette, in most cases, I will just switch job and try with a different role if the queue time is like 10 minutes. Like, I might be in the mood to DPS, but I'm not that much in the mood to DPS. But massive shock, I rarely have this issue because I usually like bring a friend or multiple friends. Like, this kind of stream would actually be a lot harder to do with like DPS only if I didn't like have people ready to join me for roulettes, right? If I didn't have that, then I would like be like, well, I would be at the mercy of the queue time. Steve says, Alpha never seems too bad with queue times. Yeah, I think the places where there's the biggest chance of massive queue time problems is the newest data center in NA can be problematic. And I don't know how well it is now, but there have at least been times where like if you're queuing for something just mildly obscure in the Oceania data center, you might not get in. You had to use Party Finder for something that isn't like in the MSQ almost. Based on what I've heard. But if you are on the newest NA data center, you can, like, if you don't want to wait, you can hop on a different data center and queue from there, and it usually resolves. But I mean, that is part of the reason why the queues are bad there. Like, if the general consensus is if you want to queue for anything while on the new NA data center, just go to a different data center and queue from there, then it, like, perpetuates the problem. Because there are no people queuing because people are queuing elsewhere. And people are queuing elsewhere because no one is queuing. It's the same as the light chaos problem in regards to Party Finder groups. If you want to Savage Raid or like do ultimates or something, the general consensus is that light has the raiders. Like, people go there to do Party Finder and stuff. Which means that people aren't doing it on chaos. And because people aren't doing it on chaos, it's on light, which perpetuates the problem. Because people are doing it on light, less people are doing it on chaos. It is actually like a snowball effect, and there's not really a good solution to it. This actually is like comparable to PvP in a way. A funny story in regards to how PvP works. So if you've done Frontline, you will know that in Frontline, the 3 teams that you're dealing with are, of course, the Twin Adders, Maelstrom, and the Immortal Flames, which means it's the 3 Grand Companies. You're part of one of them. Why isn't it the case that you're always representing your team? Why is it random? Well, once upon a time, it was you enter as your team. So if you were Maelstrom, like you chose Maelstrom as your grad company, then you would always go into frontline representing Maelstrom. And the same for Adders and Immortal Flames. Now, what happened is that a consensus started appearing that it seemed like Maelstrom always tended to win more, and Immortal Flames won sometimes, but Twin Adders, they typically didn't win. Which then led people to believe that the most hardcore PvPers were on the Maelstrom Grand Company. So if you wanted to win, you had to be Maelstrom. So some people started moving, which of course led to Maelstrom winning more, because there were more strong players on Maelstrom. And they're like, basically people actually interested in PvP, like, and winning weren't wouldn't not be on Maelstrom, so everyone else would typically lose. And this had this snowball effect of there being more and more and more Maelstrom PvPers until you reach the breaking point where you basically can't get into frontline if you're Maelstrom, because there's like one alliance raid's worth of Twin Adder players that are even remotely interested in PvP on your server or your data center. So with all the Maelstrom players, you're just not getting in. And hey Al, I hope you're doing well. So because of that, it was like a perpetual cycle. Like, you couldn't do anything about it, because why would you join Twin Adders? Like, the only benefit of being Twin Adder was that you had faster queue times for frontline, but you were going to lose. Like, you had a shorter queue time to go in the meat grinder because you were going to lose. So people didn't want to PvP. And ultimately, the solution was that they made it so that you don't necessarily represent your brand company. They just made it random, and that's how we have it today. That solved the problem, because now you can't win a team join anymore. This also, this relates to other games with factions as well. People are very likely to simply either join the faction who's winning, or switch to a server where their faction is winning. That's why often, games with factions and world PvP can, at the beginning it might be great, but eventually it, stops being great because people start figuring out, well, who's winning? I'll just join them. I want to world PvP, but I don't want to lose. Are you crazy? I want to be winning. And that's the funny thing with world PvP games, is that when people say they want those kinds of games, they typically picture themselves as the winners. And that was something I believe we discovered when I think it was a New World had a preview beta test or something, and well, they had to basically rework most of how the game worked, because it was very, very focused on PvP, extremely focused on PvP. And I basically sniped Amokius on the New World thing, and Shiro. I think, maybe? Or maybe you responded to me talking about New World. And they basically had to rework the entire game, because the thing is, if you just have, free-fall world PvP, what happens is the worst players just get picked on and farmed by all the better players. And those worst players are shocking, I know, incredible shock, not having fun, so they quit. That removes the bottom of the totem pole, which means that someone else is worst, who now gets bullied instead. So they quit because they're not having fun, and the totem pole gets lower. Eventually, you reach the point where the extremely good players are getting bullied by the best players. I also saw a similar problem in Albion Online, I believe. Mokia says, endgame New World rating is also super toxic, with people demanding to see what you're wearing, etc. to even get invited. I mean, that's the same in World of Warcraft, at least in Classic, to some degree. to some degree. And that's not surprising. The reason why people don't have to ask that in Final Fantasy XIV is because if you have an expectation of people to be a specific item level, you just do this, set it. And then they can't even like join if they don't have it. So there's no need to check. And you could of course argue, well, maybe you have bad pieces on. Unlikely if you have the correct item level, because there's so few options and most of them are fine. You might not have the best option, but you have the item level required. This would have been a completely different story if we had like Heavensward style gear options where you can wear all accessories as you please. Like, you could just straight up wear all strength accessories as a black mage if you wanted to. You could. Mokius also adds 30 run limit per week in New World, so people don't want to bring new or inexperienced people. Yeah, see, that also makes sense. If you have like limited choices like that, that also matters. That also builds on this whole thing with like let me put it like this. There are 100% guaranteed players in Final Fantasy XIV that are Savage Raiders that care so much about the gear drops that if they could, right? If they could convince 7 other players to join them, where they have, what is it called? Where they have Loot Master on, so they can just funnel all gear to themselves. They absolutely would. The only reason they don't is because, well, no one would want to join a group with Loot Master on. Obviously. They wouldn't, like, apparently they have the self-reflection to realize that that would never work. Not without tricking the group, at least. But, like, that's the thing. If you have a limit of how many runs you can do per week, then you want them to be the best possible. I remember this was similar in, and sorry for it becoming about World of Warcraft again. I tried hardcore World of Warcraft back when it was just the add-on on that, right? So the rule with the add-on was you could only do every dungeon once, only once, while leveling. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people would flat out, like, warrior tanks would refuse to join groups for dungeons where there were other warriors or paladins. And sometimes they had even like more obscure restrictions than that, because they wanted to be sure that they got the fancy axe, assuming it dropped. They got the fancy mail pants or whatever if they dropped. So they maximized their odds for the mostest, perfectest run of every dungeon, which restricted their options so much that, well, sometimes they would have to sit for hours to hope to get a group together. And, you know, the people that stuck with them and got to them, like got to the run, might also be equally selfish players that equally were aiming to get the perfect run. The funny thing is that I hosted groups for that. Like, I had like a few runs where we had multiple people that could need on the same stuff, and like if I had a pretty good weapon already and a good weapon dropped and the other person needed it, I would just pass. Like, well, you need it more, you get it. And then later in the dungeon, when a gear piece I needed more dropped, they would let me have it. I know, shocking humanity, right? But people will do that. They will do that. An ironic twist was that I noticed when I was on the Horde side, which had less players in that particular instance, people were more willing to settle because you didn't have players in the abundance to refuse anyone. If you could get a warm body that knew how to attack to join you for dead mines or whatever, then it was better than not someone. So on the Horde side, people were willing to settle, it seemed like. On the Alliance side, because there were way more people for some reason, they weren't. It was quite funny. Like, they want everything perfect if they can have it. It's interesting that it ends up that way. Nishiro says, that's the weird thing about faction wars. Of course, you want your guys to win, but no one should ever be allowed to win. Because once someone wins, the game is over. And that is true, and that's the problem with like a perpetual MMO-style battle. Because eventually, a side will be effectively the winner. Even if the game doesn't allow there to be a winner, eventually there will be an overwhelming majority of a specific faction. And people can then either choose to join them or get dumpstered completely, right? CMOQ says they rework New World's faction wars a lot. Basically used to be able to have reserves of people that could opt in to join wars. So sometimes one faction was severely gimped towards another. Now if you aid in one war, you'll be locked out of the few upcoming ones. So not always the same people steamroll the other. That is an interesting solution. But if there is a lack of players on a specific side, wouldn't that just mean that eventually a specific faction will no longer be able to participate because all of their guys have been locked out? Just thinking. I don't know. I never played New World. I saw that it was probably very heavily PvP intensive, and it seemed like more like modern universe, and I'm more like of a fantasy guy. I know incredibly a massive shock, but yeah. So I wasn't really interested. Wars get cancelled if there are too many people absent. Oh, well. I just want you to picture that for a moment. Yeah, so the opponent couldn't like produce the correct amount of soldiers, so I guess we'll have to try next week. We'll try again next week. Maybe they have people then. So much stuff. I just want to point out that I got 2 of the cards. I don't have the minion. Why? Game, why? Mimia says, why does my name tag move? It's not your name tag that is moving, it's because the starbird on your shoulder is moving and its name tag is moving. Mimia's actual name tag is not moving, it's the starbird. Exactly, watch out. Oh shoot, the enemy is understaffed, guess I can't fight them or anything. Oh. Like, I know it's like a game mechanic, but it sounds really funny if you try to like relate it to real life. But there was a similar problem with Albion Online, because like clans could like take over territory, and because the territory you could take over was where all the best materials were, whoever got to the materials first had the best equipped people, which meant that they could like, you know, maintain their rule. And this was particularly egregious because being in a clan, the clan could like impose a tax. So as far as they're concerned, there was no downside, not really, to bringing like to like assimilating other clans into theirs, because that means they have more money and things like that. So it would have this. I don't know how that went about, because I didn't get that far in Albion Online because I don't like PvP, and I was very dismayed to discover that you had to PvP basically to participate. So I didn't get that far. It looked like new modern alternative to RuneScape, and then it was like kind of, but then extremely heavily PvP though. Shiro says, other guys? Man, we hate those guys, but their army is too small. Let's not fight. Final Fantasy XIV. Hey, I know this is a friendly skirmish, but eat this arrow with a bomb taped to it. True. You're literally just fighting each other with to what appears to be to the death, but it's fine. Wouldn't not cancelling wars be better so that people couldn't win? So the people that couldn't win have a better chance to catch up? Moki says you can conquer territories in New World, so people just made, for example, Kaitsu Squad, and then another company called Kaitsu Squad and Kaitsu Squada, so they owned the entire map regardless in the end. Yeah, exactly. that sounds familiar. That's like sometimes when you check like housing wards in Final Fantasy XIV and see like 13 people with the exact same free company. To be fair, that can happen in like legitimately well-meaning means. I have been in an FC where a new ward opened and we went to the Goblet and discovered that there was no competition, so we just bought like a quarter to half of the entire of the 30 wards that we happen to be in, because you know there's 30 and 30. We just like made our own little neighborhood. But we were there, like, we were hanging out there anyway. Like, we had, like, a little square outside of the free company house specifically, where everyone, like, collected. But that happened to be centered between many of the houses anyway. So that was just our neighborhood. It stopped working when people started moving away. That's not one person trying to own the whole world, and that is absolutely true. It was just more to say that if you see, like, an army of the same free company, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is one person. But it can. Anyway, we actually managed to get everything done. Last week, we didn't manage to get the P12 done on stream, and this time we even managed to have a complete detour of talking about mentor stuff, and this at the end, and I'm pretty sure we finished early and everything, so that was pretty wild. We have become more efficient. Now, with that said, if you enjoyed the wonderful people that you see in the chat on this stream, then remember that there's a Discord community server that you can join, where you'll find me and a bunch of the people in the chat, I'm sure. You will also find the weekly schedule, where you can see what else is happening on the channel this week. And you will usually be able to see it updated Sunday or Monday, so you can make sure that you don't miss a thing. You will also find the announcement room, where I post when there is a new video, a new stream, whatever it is. It usually shows up there first. And you can go to the role assignments room and grab the reminder role if you want in particular. Then you will get a little notification whenever I post these things. That also includes a 15-minute reminder just in advance when something time sensitive like a stream is about to start, so you don't miss the beginning. And yeah, if you did enjoy this stream, it will help me a lot if you leave a like on the stream in the YouTube system. You know, the thumbs up that tells YouTube that this was a very enjoyable stream and you want more people to see it, because it's very fun. So that helps me and the channel grow. Thank you so much in advance. And I think that's everything. So Thursday we have more solo challenge stream, where we'll be trying to finish the remaining optional Stormblood dungeons solo with Warrior, whereas we usually do, or try to do these days, big mega wall-to-wall pulls solo and try to beat it anyway, which I think gets quite entertaining, and I hope you will too. So I hope to see you then. I also have a short coming out tomorrow about non-standard Black Mage play, so you might enjoy that. You might find that fascinating off the back of this. Anyway, good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye bye!